9-to-5 job. I'm the National Account Manager for Food and Beverage.
This is the System Class Interactive Bottling Line. It shows an entire layout for your plant. Within this tool, you can go in and pick one of the various applications and get our solution to your industry problem.
On my 50th birthday, I got diagnosed with a real aggressive form of cancer. And they told me at the time that I needed to exercise when it was all done or I would gain a lot of weight, which I thought was crazy because I've always been in good shape. After this treatment was done, I started putting on weight like crazy. So I started walking every day. And so I walked about 3 miles a day. I would leave my house and I would walk out a half hour and then walk back a half an hour. And during those walks, I would hear all kinds of sounds, you know. I started getting curious of where all these sounds were coming from because I had never heard them before, really. And I realized they were coming from birds. So I started taking the camera with me on these walks. Every day, I got a new treat. I'd see a bird I'd never seen before, or, you know, one time I saw an eagle, and I was like, man, I didn't even know we had eagles around here. So it really sparked my interest in the birds. How does the birding go with my 9-to-5 job? It started out, it wasn't that difficult because I was off, you know, from work, rehabbing. But as time went on, I had to work myself back into the workplace. And so what I began doing is getting up really early in the morning and starting to travel to the places where I wanted to go for bird shots, places I knew those birds would be. And then that way I could set up while it was still dark, get my camera settings and everything done. And I'd be ready to go as soon as the sun broke. And you'd be amazed, you get some really great pictures sometimes when you're in that soft lighting. So as the photographer in me, varying it and getting some different shots, it was really important. Then that way I'd take the pictures before I'd go to work. And then I'd come back, go to work, do my job. And a lot of times I would be out of town. So I would carry my camera gear with me and do the same routine as when I was home. Then I'd go to work. In the afternoon, I'd repeat it again. As soon as I could get out, the sun was going down a lot of cases, gave some very interesting light. So it's kind of how I worked it in between my 9-to-5 and taking the photographs. Birding for Beginners is a book that is for the beginning birder, but not necessarily for any particular age group. And one of the things that I wanted to do is that I didn't want to write another field guide. There's so many field guides out there that have so much material, and it's very hard for the beginning birder to work through those actual tips. So what I did was I wrote a book that answered the questions that I wanted answered that I never found the answer to in the books that I found out there. One of those tips is, how do I actually set up the camera for birding? Another tip is, how do you stand to get the light in the best place? And so I told the story from my perspective and tried to make it interesting by relaying experiences that I had. Sometimes we get treated to a bird that's really not native to our area, and it's rare to see them, so you want to make sure that you get a good photograph. I had taken some pictures of trumpeter swans over at one of the wildlife reserves in our area. There was a lot of conversation of whether it was a trumpeter swan or a tundra swan. In that particular instance, I didn't get a chance to count that bird because the person from Audubon Society said that it was a hybrid and it wasn't a true trumpeter. So about a year later, I had another opportunity to see some trumpeter swans. So I brushed up on my field guides to make sure I knew all of the identifying marks, and I was at the park taking pictures of it, and a guy came up and he was very knowledgeable about the swans. So I told him about what had happened a year earlier, and I said, well, someone came down, I don't really know who, but they said that it wasn't a trumpeter, but this time I'm pretty sure it's a trumpeter. He said, I'll agree with you, I think this time it is a trumpeter, and I'm the guy from Audubon that made the determination last year. So it was just kind of funny. I would be remiss if I didn't say a word about my family. My job is very demanding and I have to travel a lot. So to come home and take bird pictures takes away from my family. I've always tried to spend a lot of time with my family, my wife, Maxine, and my two beautiful children, Khalil and Jessica, and they have been very understanding. But what I can do is get them involved in the birding. Nobody wants to go on the hikes because I tend to stay out there 2 or 3 hours. But my son Khalil is very interested in the video portion, so he'll come down and help me edit. Sometimes Jessica and Maxine will help me pick out the pictures that tell the best story or give me an interesting name for the picture. So it has been very rewarding that my family has taken an interest in it, even though it's probably not something they would have done. The 400 lens is really for long distance, but it doesn't bring it in as close as you would think. You know, it looks like a big lens from here, but when you pull in on an eagle or an osprey, you don't want to bring it in really big. The other thing that's nice about a 400 lens is you can get some great portraits of the smaller birds. A lot of times you're looking for a needle in a haystack. You're talking about a bird that's only 4 inches, and you want to fill up as much of the frame as possible. So having a big lens, it's going to be important to get that. And also having a tripod on the lens itself takes a lot of the weight off of your camera. So setup I really like. Well, I thought long and hard about how should I represent myself going forward with the birding. And I decided to form a company called 3C Media. The media in the title gave me latitude to do other kinds of projects besides the birds. But I have a website at www.3cmedia.net. And on that website, I sell photographic services, but I also give people access to my art. So you can go in and see birding pictures. I also do videos under 3C Media. But the other thing that I really like doing is with this book, it's given me a new product to go out into the marketplace with. And I've done this in conjunction with ASG Productions, who's the publisher of my book. It'll be available in bookstores and also on Amazon.